And we're live. Welcome back to another episode of the Pashanite Club. Once again, this is going to be a little bit more different. I have my good friend Imam in front of me. Today we're going to go through a couple of our quotes we said before, and we just dive right in. If you need people to root for you to win, you've already lost. What does that mean?
It's funny. I tweeted this. I think our Twitters are turning into like personal journals, like hearing something and saying something. I like these are tweets to self. It's like notes to self that like usually when I'm going through something personal and I need to realize a lesson myself, it's something that I really get to know. And in this case, especially when you're starting a business, you're an entrepreneur, you're studying, you're in school, you're going for your master's. People have an expectation for other people to say that, hey, I need you to root for me or I will not be successful. I need a girlfriend. I need someone to support. I need a best friend. And we talk about this all the time. It's that lonely chapter. That chapter where it is just hard months, years, decades of work, where you have to put in work without the expectation of results. And that is where my thought process is that it's that challenge of understanding fully that you don't need anybody to rely on. You don't need anyone to support you. But once you realize the fact that some days the only person that's going to be cheering for yourself is you. And the last analogy I love talking about when I think about this is it's like, imagine a podium or like a big stadium, and there's just, for a very, very long time, there's just going to be one clap in the crowd. And that's going to be you. That standing ovation, just one person. Until you actually get the results and you have something to show, then that room starts to fill more and more and more and more. But that is what our goal is to work towards. And that's kind of what that means.
Yeah, well said. Well said.
It wasn't the person, it was your relationship with them.
Amazing. So this one, I think, has to do with more relationships with your friends or etc. The way I thought about this part was I was in the car with my friend, and we had this mutual that he just completely despised, right? And I was like, oh, like honestly, my relationship with him is sick. So we started to get to thinking or started talking, and he was like, no, he did this to me, he did that to me. And then throughout this entire conversation, it just boiled down to one thing, and that was boundaries. Often we don't set those boundaries with certain people, and they take advantage of you. Right? That's the same way that if I had this relationship with you per se, and we're best of friends, but myself or they may not like you that much. Why is that? Because your relationship was different. You guys didn't set the proper boundaries, whatever it may be. And we do the same thing with our like spouses as well. We think about they have to be this certain way and all these beautiful things in the middle. But we always neglect the boundaries. And we think that a lot of people think boundaries in a relationship shouldn't exist and it's not healthy. But I would say it's the complete opposite. That having healthy boundaries, it's the pinnacle for a success in a relationship, both in a business relationship or whether it be an intimate relationship. That's like the core principle that I really believe in. Goals really only matter if they change what you do.
This is one of my favorite ones. It's goal setting. I used to listen to this talk from Napoleon Hill, and it's called The Strangest Secret. And I remember when I used to listen to this in my early days, something that popped up was that an analogy. If I grab a boat and a cruise ship and I take off everybody on that cruise ship, but it has its destination, I click enter, I start the key, put it in drive, and everyone runs off the boat. When that boat starts going, what's most likely going to happen to that boat? It's probably going to get washed out, capsize, whatever it is. But now take that same boat, put a GPS in it, a destination, put a GPS in it, and then put, a cruise on it, crew members on it. What's going to happen? It's most likely going to get to its destination. Goals only matter, that GPS only matters if you have those crew members aboard. Because so many people once a year will go and set a goal. Will go and set that, hey, I want to lose X amount of weight. I want to go achieve this much amount of success. I want to go generate this client. I want to go get 10 new sales clients. But they're not willing to do the dials. They're not willing to hit the gym every day. They're not willing to do the work. And that is where, as student entrepreneurs, we're managing with school, we're managing with clients, we're managing with our own team members. And I think quickly realizing that as you have bigger and bigger clients is I can set a target and I can set a goal, but the only work that will matter is the one you do when nobody is watching. The funny story behind this was that I remember I was sitting with somebody, and it was this new first year kid who was trying to start basically a business, and I think this is his third or fourth sales call with me. Like, he just like really wanted me as a mentor, and I don't find myself even like relatively as successful as where I want to be, but just because some of the law of recency, someone just did it, and like, you can ask that person for advice. So I'll sit with this kid, and he just kept asking me every meeting. It felt like I was just saying the same thing again and again and again, and he'd have new 5 goals. All right, man, Imam, I'm gonna have this goal, this goal, this goal, this goal. Okay, sick. And no, I would end up being the same feedback, go make 100 dials. Okay, come back to me like 2 months later. Hey, Imam, like, he'll have some form of excuse to say that, oh, like something happened, or like, I changed my idea, that's why I couldn't dial. Next 2 months, same thing. I stopped taking meetings with the kid. I was like, if you want my help, you are showing disrespect to the person that's helping you, but the fear of working. And your goals are, and I said this to his face, your goals mean nothing until you go and act. And just a year's worth of me achieving a couple of my goals that I used to set out, you launching this podcast of goals we used to set out, it was work that got us here, not our goals. And I think that's the biggest thing I think about.
Tell me what you know or how you feel about goals versus systems.
So it's funny. Successful people have goals, millionaires have systems. And the difference between both is that its success is relative towards whoever is in their context listening to this. But systems are your day-to-day habits. What are you? The systems are in place that you have a goal and a target. It is to lose X amount of weight. A system now is that what are you going to do on a day-to-day basis, even when it gets boring? Going to the gym 4 or 5 times a week alone when your friends aren't going is boring. Making sales calls, the work starts when it gets boring. The first week's all exciting. Yeah, I got my first 10 clients. The first 6 months. But the work really starts when it gets boring. And after a certain period of time, goals don't drive you. Systems do. And those systems are what the habits you have set up that you're working on towards a day-to-day basis. And for me personally, that's how we do our sales outreach. It's the fact that I used to be all excited that I'm doing my sales calls, my emails, my, starting up the fastest growing student startup in Canada. And it was great getting these titles, magazines, blog articles, school newspapers. It was fun. But right when that stuff started to die down a little, now it's like, all right, we're in the headlines now. Now what? You don't have as much motivation driving you. And quickly had to realize that the only way this is going to keep going is not my goals that are going to drive me because everyone wants to be rich, but my systems, my day-to-day habits that are going to work every single day. Everyone bleeds the same blood, but no one shows it.
Oftentimes, I feel like with this one in particular is when I was talking to a friend of mine, and they were just comparing. They were doing a lot of comparing. And in the middle of their conversation, he looked at me and said, well, it's easier for you to say you've had everything given to you, or it's so much easier for you. You're just naturally more gifted in what you're doing right now. And that one got me thinking. A lot of times when we compare our lives to someone or whatever they may be, we just think that they have nothing wrong going with themselves and they have just everything right? They don't have any problems. And when someone looks at you yourself, they're like, oh, look at this big time business guy. No one knows about the sleepless nights. No one knows about the feeling the stomach before that sales pitch or that sales call. You know what? You don't know where that next check is coming from or how you're going to pay the next bill. No one talks about that, right? Everyone knows it's kind of there, maybe somebody might think, but nobody talks about it. You just come out, you present yourself as this person of confidence who knows what he's doing. And when I told him, I was like, yo, everyone bleeds the same blood, but no one ever really talks about their problems because we're so quick to be like, oh, he already has it so easy, it's fine, I have no one with the issues. He's the one who's good. Oh, easy for you to say it. And I think that's even a good reflection point to yourselves, or ourselves, is because I called him out for doing it, but in the mix of calling him out, I realized that I use that same excuse to myself, right? How many times have I said oh, well, it's easy for him because he's naturally gifted at X? How many times have you even said that? Oh, it's easy for you to say no one because of you have this support system. Or it's easier for you to say, because you have this, you're naturally gifted at talking, right? When you hear that, your first thought is do you not know about the fucking dials I missed? What was the sales that I didn't close? Like, you see modern closes here, but they're saying it wasn't always like that, right? No one knows, no one sees like the work that you said, the work that no one sees. No one really actually sees it, because that's the most important one. And at the end of the day, no one ever will. They'll just see your success and they'll just judge you for that. So just shine brighter than all of that.
Well said. I think something that really ties on with this aspect of doing work when no one's watching. It's the fact that like sometimes someone comes up and you have friends starting to say that, oh, you're too busy for us.
To Hollywood.
You're too Hollywood. You're you know, like, oh, this guy's going out again. And it's that aspect of that lonely chapter we talked about, where you're at the point in life now where you don't fit in with the current kids that are around your age, the kids that are partying every weekend, going out, like, you know, having the late nights, the drinking, the celebrations. But you're also not at that point yet with your results where you're with the multimillionaires, so the guys that have the $1 million businesses, the exits, the investors, the partners. You're in this weird in-between phase where you're not good enough for the big guys, the big leagues, but you're also not at the point yet where you want to be chilling with the same guys you were before. And that is where I would solve my time in this lonely phase of alone work in solitude. But what really helped me get past this trap, because at the end of the day, I was to support people. I had mentors that I never met. And those mentors were people like Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins, Alex Hormozi, all these people that I'll listen to online on a day-to-day basis. And then when you start hearing something like XYZ, when I exited my company, this happened. Or during my investment round raising, XYZ happened. Or during this sales call, this happened. What starts to happen is that even if you haven't experienced that pain yet of the multi-million-dollar loss or the lawsuit or whatever happens, you get this sense of this relief that, oh, hey, I haven't experienced this, but when you do, I remember, like, I heard that it is a place of familiarity. Like, I know this is normal. And that feeling itself has been one of the most empowering feelings for me, knowing that someone else has done it with harder circumstances, but done it better than me.
That's amazing. You'll lose sleep. You'll stress over making it all come together. Your to-do list will feel endless, and you'll doubt your decisions with no immediate answers. This is what hard really feels like, and that's okay.
I think so far today's entire talk has been about challenges and how to navigate challenges and talk and pain. And it gets a cliche for a lot of people. This is my first public service announcement. It is okay to work on weekends. It is okay to work after hours. And the reset period is that usually what happens is that, as I was saying earlier, what happens is that when someone faces some adversity, some challenge, some pain, they mess up, they have a failure they hit, they have something that happens that they did not want happening, they did not expect. What ends up happening is that someone starts tying every single moment of their life to that loss, to that pain, to that challenge. And they say, life is hard. So what? I can promise you, someone has it worse than you and has done it better. Someone who's had a way worse childhood than you, someone whose parents have left them, someone who's had multiple things happen to them as a child, and they had it much harder than you did, but their results are 10 times more extraordinary even than mine and yours. So why is that?
Self-loathing versus accountability.
There you go. And that is where this is what hard feels like. And that's okay. It's that expectations that it's like for a sports team. I coach basketball and I have a bunch of these high school kids that come and sometimes they're like, oh, we want to coach your mom, because I coached you early here. And what ends up happening is that these kids that I coach on a daily basis, they see on a weekly basis, they see us working, they see the sprints, they see the suicides after practice, they're huffing and puffing and huffing and puffing. But then we win one game, we win 2 games, we win 3 games. But then after they come back, after the 3rd or 4th practice, and they run their suicide, even after they got a win, they come up to him, they're like, Coach, this is bullshit. Like, you know, we won games, why are we still doing suicides? Do you want to stay like that how you are right now? This is what hard feels like. And instantly, when I had that huddle, I was like, guys, it sucks, it does. But this is what it feels like. And then I'll give them an example of someone who's had it worse, someone who's done it better. An easy example can be like an NBA player. someone who lost their parents, Kawhi. Like, doesn't have everyone knows who he is. No one doesn't have parents. And then instantly you see everyone's shoulders drop. You're like, yeah, he's right. And they'll go run another 3 laps.
No, I love that.
You're lacking. You have fallen behind. Go back to your roots. You have gotten too comfortable in this fairy tale.
Wow. It just seems so deep when I was writing it. And I think when I talk about accountability and I talk about self-loathing, it's something that I have to go through like on a daily basis or a weekly basis, like you mentioned. Because sometimes I feel like life sucks. Well, shit, this deal didn't close. This client said he'll pay, but he didn't. Last minute, something happened. He pulled out. That happens. It's business. It's life. What do you do then? And I remember I was just like self-loathing to the max. I was like, oh my God, why is life like this? Why am I doing this? Like, this makes no sense, and whatever it may be. And then I start getting a little happier, saying like, you know what, it's fine. I'm doing something that not many people are doing, so I'm already better than them, or whatever it may be. And I spoke to one of my other friends, and he was just running laps around me, right? And it's all competition, but it's all friendly competition, whatever it may be. And then I just thought to myself, I was like, yo, like I'm lacking. As much as I think that I'm doing, there's so much more that I could be doing, right? So stop getting into this fairy tale that you're this new up-and-coming entrepreneur who has a podcast and he's all these cute little things that he's doing with his life. And at the end of the day, when you look at the mirror and you ask yourself, what did I accomplish today? What am I going to accomplish tomorrow? And this year, what has it been for me? If you can't look at yourself and be like, you know what, maybe it's good. I was happy with it. Then you're lacking, right? And that's the problem. You're just like, you're lacking. Please get your shit together because no one else is going to be here for you. No one's going to hold your hand. You might have a friend call you up saying lock in. What does that really mean, right? After that, what do? You did you did 100 dials. What then? Do you end? Like you said, the suicides. You run the suicides. What do you do then? Are you taking the bus home or are you walking? What are you doing then? How you continuously improving on a day-to-day basis? And it's not until we actually understand that just because someone gives you a compliment for you're working hard doesn't actually mean you're working hard, right? Everyone has their own measurement of what work means. And if you think that you're going to stumble down to their level and be like, you know what, yeah, he said so I got to listen to him, then by all means, listen to him. But at the end of the day, if you feel like you could have done more, or at the end of the year, you feel like, where did all the time go? That's how you know you've been getting too comfortable. And at that moment in time, you need to understand that the ball is in your court. You just got to take the shots.
I love that analogy, man. I think, especially in a time today, it's never been easier to start a business, but it's also never been easier to do nothing. And I think your point ties so much to that, where if you're lacking, you have fallen behind, realizing where you started and why you started sometimes is a great way to get your systems back in place, and learning from people who have what you want. If I'm trying to bake a cake, am I going to go learn from someone like myself who can't crack an egg? Or am I going to go learn from a chef? Probably the chef. So it all goes back to where you're getting information from. It's never been easy to start. And looking to the camera saying it, start now. That is a big piece of advice I think we both have.
Honest to God. And I think there's a quote that you said, great segue into it, action alleviates anxiety. And before I have you get onto it, I think in life, whether it be that call, that competition, that pitch, like even that call and a text that I go for, that really uncomfortable conversation, doing the thing feels so much better, even if it goes the entire opposite way you might want it to go, so much better than just having anxiety about the actual thing you're doing, right? We kind of just, the whole self-loathing thing I'll be talking about all the time, it's like you start getting in your head, and as more time goes on, the more and more you feel like it's becoming harder to make that decision or make that conversation or for whatever it may be. But I'd love to have your input on it about like, what does that really mean to you?
I remember I was driving home. I was driving home from that car ride. I was driving home on a car ride home, and I remember anxiety is a feeling. So if we break it down to definitions, the feeling of being sad is feeling the lack of options, meaning that you feel like you are cornered and you do not see any other options out. That is the feeling of sadness. The feeling of anxiety is kind of the opposite. It's the feeling of having too many options and not knowing which option to pursue. So if I wanted to battle that, wouldn't be the best way to suppress all other actions by taking one thing and just taking as much action as possible? So what I started realizing very fast was that your to-do list is going to feel endless all the time. And in an early stage, I felt bummed out that, I'm pitching in front of investors here. I have like a presentation about 400 people here, 700 people here, 800 people here. And the stress would build up and anxiety. Which one do I work on? What do I prioritize? Who do I prioritize on my team? And everything would just get bigger and badder, and like it would get anxious. I'd get anxious. I don't know if I'm supposed to be focusing my time on sales, my clients, my customers, my publicity, my interviews, my magazines, my podcasts. I didn't know where to go. But what I realized is that whenever I felt anxiety, the only way I felt better wasn't talking about it, wasn't going to calling people about it. It was always, always, always action. And that is where that comes from. Action alleviates anxiety. Because when you're working towards a single outcome all the time, I will come and work 2 to 3 a.m. sometimes, some days, just so I know that I'm putting that anxiety down. So there's an amazing analogy that I heard from Chris Williams, and this is where it's an amazing analogy. So have you heard of the analogy of the cat and the mouse? So basically, there's an experience that was done from Harvard Labs, and I loved it. And what this experiment basically is that they get a mouse, and they put a mouse inside of a tube, and then in front of them, they basically tie a string to the back of the mouse's tail, around the mouse, and they basically measure how hard the mouse pulls. So first test is that they first from the front of the tube, they send the smell of cheese, and the mouse pulls and pulls and pulls pretty hard. The same experiment is then conducted where they turn the mouse around, they put the smell of cheese in front of him, but then at the back of the tube, they put the smell of a cat. The mouse pulls much, much harder. And the analogy behind this is that goals, visions, dreams, they drive us. But sometimes that cat that's behind you will be the thing that gets you to take action. It's the fact that you do have a family to provide. It's the fact that if you don't take action now, what are the consequences going to be for that later? When you're 85 on your deathbed, this is quoting Alex Hormozi, when you're 85 on your deathbed, are you going to wish you're going to have fewer, crazier stories to tell? Not really, right? If you had the opportunity to go and create the ideal self that you could go back and, God gave you this opportunity to go and create your ideal self, and you get to live that being, and you get to choose the entire story of how that story is written. Would you put that person to all the easy tasks, giving them all the easy work, making him a softie? No, right? Like you would want that person to come on as a gladiator, putting that person through pain, putting that person through challenges. And especially to the young entrepreneurs that are listening to this, the whole goal right now is taking action. And sometimes, whether it's fear, whether it's pain, whether it's rejection, whether it's motivations, perseverance, or a goal, or a girl, it doesn't matter what drives your action. It just matters that something needs to drive it. But if you want more push, give yourself that incentive of the days you're feeling good of what could happen if you hit results. But then also remind yourself of what's going to happen if you don't.
I love the way you describe anxiety and you were broken down at the fundamental. And I heard this one thing with motivation. It says motivation is the deprivation of something, correct? And I had my brother tell me, and I was telling him my schedule, or even when I talked to my friends, their first question was like, bro, how do you do it? How are you waking up this early and doing all these things in the day? And then I just looked at them and I said, my bank account. And they laughed. And then I started thinking, I was like, due to this deprivation of this certain aspect of my life, it pushes me to work harder. And I look at the guy who's fat in the gym. He's just every single day, he's watching what he's eating. He's in the gym 24/7. What's happening? What's his deprivation, right? It might be a girl. It might be the way he just doesn't feel confident. The deprivation of his confidence has got in him to do what he's doing. And I think it's actually important to understand that why you do the things you do. And I always talk about what's your why, what are you passionate about, things like that. Because when everything seems impossible and you see this beautiful day in front of you with everything, your entire calendar is booked out with meetings, what we always talk about is like, look at my calendar. And we don't know when to fit in the gym, for example. Like I said, if you're too busy, wake up earlier. I just bought you 2 hours. What do you do then, right? And I think it's really important to understand that a lot of times when we go through life and we feel like it's not possible and we just keep giving ourselves so many excuses on excuses, that if you break it down fundamentally and you understand why you're doing the things you're doing, and you understand that at this particular moment in life, you are deprived of a resource that you want so much, and really going into it like, that's the reason why I continue, I think that's the biggest game changer I've had.
So I have a story that I want to add on to this. I used to work as a software salesman in Toronto. And I remember my job was basically to go sell a brand new software where no one knew who I was, no one knew what I did, and no one knew where I was coming from and what company I was from. It was a startup. So I had to go sell a complete new idea and go knock on doors in 40-degree weather outside as an intern. And my job was from minimum wage. I was knocking on doors, door after door after door. And for training one day, my manager basically goes and takes me to Chinatown. Now, at the time, I didn't know that, I thought I was going to go get sales on sales on sales. I go and knock on my first door. I knock on my second. I got sworn at in languages. The door slammed on my face, and it was horrible. Imagine your first day on the street, you're getting the door slammed in you. But again, the reason my manager did that was a smart reason. The reason is because this is what hard feels like. He needed to reset my expectation of let's face rejection first, and then let's move forward. But the instant thing that I wanted to get back with our point we were tying to is that when I was in this role and I was going day to day working and I didn't want to do it and the stuff got boring, a quick thing I started to realize that the deprivation that I had in order for me to hit my goals was skills. I lacked skills. And skills are the things that differentiate people of if I was to take everything away from you and everything away from me, why is it that people say that if you took all the money away from the success of people in this world, they're able to rebuild it again? It's because it's not what they built in their funding that's going to get them there. It's their skills that will. And that's exactly what I pushed for. So I knew that my skills were the things that were lacking. So every day, I was the intern that was coming in before the CEO. At 7 a.m., I'd be in a little room at the DMZ locked in, and I would put up a Jordan Belfort quote, straight line persuasion. And I would set up, and my goal was that I'm going to learn an hour of a course a day before I start work. Our work day started around 8:30, so I'd be at the office by 7, grab a little bit of breakfast, and 7:30 to 8:30. My job was to sit there for an hour and take notes, and I would take pages and pages and pages of notes. And my manager ever do know where to find me, just because I was the first one there, the last one to leave. I would go through all my day, and whatever I learned, strategy I learned that day, now we'll have 8 hours of selling ahead of me. I now had time to practice for 8 hours a day for the exact thing that I just learned. And I did that, and I started getting better and better and better, and I brought in over 78% of sales closed that summer out of 4 interns. But the only reason is because I was pushing again and again, and at the end of the day, when everyone else was going home, or on their train ride home, or a hour commute that I had home, I'd have my notebook open, and I would reflect as to what my results were based off of my current goals. But this all comes back to say that if you are lacking a skill, if you do not know what action to take, if you do not know where to start, the best place to start is by building a skill. That skill, while learning, will probably then spark an idea for you to solve a problem in a specific way and to create that change when needed.
That's amazing. I think on that note, we're going to wrap it all up. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you on the next episode.